He was broke at 35, then became one of Hollywood's biggest legends. What if I told you one of the biggest movie stars in history almost gave up on his dream? Not because he wasn't talented, not because he didn't work hard, but because life simply refused to give him a chance. Imagine waking up every morning knowing you have bills you can't pay, looking at your children, wondering how you're going to feed your family next month. Now imagine chasing a dream that everyone around you believes is already dead. That's exactly where Harrison Ford found himself. Before becoming Han Solo, before Indiana Jones, before millions of people around the world knew his name, he was just another struggling actor living in Los Angeles. Years passed, audition after audition, rejection after rejection. Producers told him he didn't have what it takes. Casting directors ignored him. Some even believed he'd never become a leading man. Most people would have quit. Most people would have accepted an ordinary life. But Harrison Ford made a decision that changed everything. Instead of abandoning his dream, he found another way to survive. During the day, he worked as a carpenter. He built cabinets, installed doors, fixed homes. And while everyone else thought his Hollywood journey was over, something extraordinary was quietly happening behind the scenes. Every nail he hammered, every piece of wood he cut, was unknowingly bringing him closer to the biggest opportunity of his life. Because sometimes life doesn't open the front door. Sometimes it asks you to enter through the workshop instead. And Harrison Ford had no idea that one simple carpentry job would introduce him to the people who would completely change his future forever.
At first, carpentry wasn't Harrison Ford's dream. It was survival. Every morning, he loaded his tools into an old truck and drove from one job site to another, hoping each paycheck would keep his family afloat for another week. There were days when he wondered if Hollywood had already forgotten him. He had spent years chasing acting roles, yet success always seemed to belong to someone else. His friends began building stable careers. Some bought houses, others climbed the corporate ladder. Meanwhile, Harrison was measuring wood, cutting boards, and wondering if he had waited too long. He was already in his 30s. In Hollywood, many believed that was too late to become a star. The pressure was unbearable. He wasn't just responsible for himself anymore. He had a wife. He had children. Every decision carried the weight of an entire family. Quitting acting would have been the safest choice. Nobody would have blamed him. In fact, most people would have called it the responsible decision. But Harrison refused to let temporary circumstances define his permanent future. He made a promise to himself. I'll do whatever it takes to provide for my family, but I won't let go of my dream. That single promise changed the way he looked at every day. Carpentry was no longer a sign of failure. It became the bridge that allowed him to keep chasing his passion. Then, one ordinary workday turned into the most important day of his life. A client recommended him for another carpentry project. It sounded like just another job, just another house, just another paycheck. But this wasn't an ordinary customer. The people inside that building were some of the biggest names in Hollywood. As Harrison quietly worked with his tools, someone noticed more than his craftsmanship. They noticed his confidence, his calm personality, his natural screen presence. Without realizing it, the struggling carpenter was standing only a few steps away from the opportunity that would transform his life forever. And what happened next would prove that sometimes your biggest breakthrough arrives when you're simply doing your best work, even when nobody is watching.
That ordinary carpentry job was at the office of one of Hollywood's most respected filmmakers. Harrison wasn't there as an actor. He wasn't there for an audition. He was there carrying a toolbox. He measured walls, installed cabinets, repaired furniture, and focused on doing one thing: his job. No complaints, no excuses, no bitterness. He understood something that many people never do. Excellence has a way of introducing you before your name ever does. While Harrison worked, people around him began noticing his attitude. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't begging for opportunities. He simply showed up, worked hard, and carried himself with quiet confidence. That confidence caught the attention of one of the biggest names in Hollywood, George Lucas. At the time, Lucas was preparing auditions for a new science fiction movie, a film almost nobody believed would become successful. Its name was Star Wars. Interestingly, Harrison wasn't even invited to audition for the lead role. Instead, he was asked to help read lines with other actors during casting sessions. Think about that for a moment. He wasn't the person being tested. He was helping other people get the opportunity he had been dreaming about for years. Imagine watching actor after actor step into the spotlight while you remained in the background. For many people, that moment would have been heartbreaking. Jealousy would have taken over. Frustration would have won. But not Harrison Ford. He gave every line his full effort. Every conversation felt real. Every emotion felt authentic. He wasn't performing because someone promised him success. He performed because excellence had become part of who he was. And then something unexpected happened. The casting team started paying more attention to Harrison than to the actors who were actually auditioning. The man holding the script was slowly becoming the man everyone couldn't stop watching. Without realizing it, years of rejection, years of carpentry, years of refusing to quit had prepared him for this exact moment. And within days, a decision would be made that would change not only Harrison Ford's life, but the history of cinema. The decision finally came. George Lucas made his choice. The struggling carpenter, the man who had spent years hearing the word no, was offered the role of Han Solo. It didn't feel real. For years, Harrison Ford had imagined getting the opportunity of a lifetime, but now that it had arrived, it almost seemed impossible to believe. Still, there was one problem. No one knew if Star Wars would succeed. In fact, many people inside Hollywood thought the movie would fail. A space adventure? Laser swords? Strange creatures? Talking robots? It sounded too strange, too risky, too different. Many actors would have walked away from a project like that. But Harrison had spent too many years waiting for a chance to let fear make the decision. He accepted the role. And once filming began, he gave everything he had. Long hours, demanding scenes, countless retakes. There were no guarantees, no promises, only hard work. Every single day, he reminded himself that opportunities don't stay forever. When life finally opens a door, you have to walk through it with everything you've got. Then, in 1977, the impossible happened. Star Wars exploded across the world. The movie shattered box office records. People stood in lines that stretched around city blocks. Children pretended to be Han Solo. Adults watched the movie again and again. Almost overnight, the carpenter who could barely pay his bills became one of the most recognizable faces on Earth. But here's what most people never realize. People saw the overnight success. They didn't see the 15 years of rejection. They celebrated the movie star. They forgot the carpenter. They admired the fame. They never witnessed the struggle. Success has a strange way of hiding the years that came before it. And Harrison Ford understood that better than anyone. because deep inside, he still remembered every failed audition, every unpaid bill, every piece of wood he had cut just to keep his dream alive. Little did he know, his biggest success was still waiting ahead. One legendary character had already changed his life, but another iconic role was about to make him a Hollywood legend forever. Most people would have been satisfied. One blockbuster movie, worldwide fame, financial security. For many, that would have been enough. But Harrison Ford never allowed success to become his finish line. He understood something powerful. Getting one opportunity can change your life, but what you do next defines your legacy. After Star Wars became a global phenomenon, suddenly Hollywood saw him differently. The same industry that once ignored him now wanted him. Directors who had never returned his calls began asking for meetings. Studios that had overlooked him started offering major roles. It seemed like everything had finally fallen into place. Then another opportunity appeared. A famous filmmaker named Steven Spielberg and legendary producer George Lucas were creating a brand new adventure film. They needed someone who looked fearless, someone who felt real, someone audiences could instantly trust. Not a perfect superhero, but an ordinary man willing to face extraordinary danger. When Harrison Ford was offered the role, he didn't realize he was about to create another character that would live forever. That character was Indiana Jones. This role demanded everything: running through jungles, escaping ancient traps, riding horses, fighting enemies, performing physically exhausting scenes. Many action stars relied heavily on stunt doubles, but Harrison wanted the audience to believe every moment. He trained relentlessly. He pushed himself harder than ever. Every scene reflected the same mindset he had developed years earlier as a struggling carpenter. Show up, do the work, never complain, never stop improving. Then, Raiders of the Lost Ark premiered. The response was unbelievable. Audiences didn't just love Indiana Jones, they became obsessed with him. Once again, Harrison Ford wasn't simply starring in a successful movie, he was becoming part of history. Think about that. One man, two legendary characters, Han Solo, Indiana Jones, both played by someone who had once questioned whether his dream was already over. But perhaps the greatest lesson wasn't his fame, it was this. If Harrison had quit acting just 1 year earlier, if he had decided he was too old, too broke, too discouraged, the world would have never met either of these iconic characters. And that's exactly why the next chapter of his journey is even more important. Because real success isn't measured by how high you rise, it's measured by how you respond when life tests you again.
From the outside, it looked like Harrison Ford had finally reached the top. Millions of fans, blockbuster movies, worldwide recognition. The dream he had chased for nearly 2 decades had finally come true. But life has a way of testing people, even after they've become successful. Many believe that once you make it, the struggles disappear. The truth is, the challenges simply change. With every new movie, expectations became higher. People no longer compared Harrison Ford to other actors. They compared him to himself. Every performance had to be better than the last. Every film carried enormous pressure. One mistake, one failure could change everything. Yet Harrison never allowed fear to control his decisions. He remembered the man who used to carry a toolbox from house to house. That man had survived rejection. So why should success make him afraid? Instead of chasing fame, he focused on mastering his craft. He read every script carefully. He practiced relentlessly. He respected every member of the film crew, from directors to camera operators to the people building the movie sets. Because he knew something many stars forget. No one succeeds alone. The same humility that kept him grounded as a carpenter now kept him grounded as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Then, life reminded him that success doesn't protect anyone from pain. During the filming of several action movies, Harrison suffered serious injuries, broken bones, damaged ligaments, pain that would have convinced many actors to retire. Doctors advised rest. Friends questioned whether it was worth continuing. But Harrison had never built his life on comfort. He had built it on resilience. Each setback became another chapter, not the end of the story. He recovered, returned to work, and proved once again that determination is stronger than temporary pain. Because the greatest victories don't belong to the people who never fall. They belong to the people who always find a way to stand back up. And just as it seemed Harrison Ford had achieved everything imaginable, life was preparing one final lesson, a lesson far more valuable than fame, money, or awards.
By now, Harrison Ford had everything most people spend their entire lives chasing: fame, respect, financial freedom, a place in Hollywood history. But if you asked him what truly changed his life, it wasn't the money, it wasn't the awards, it wasn't even becoming Han Solo or Indiana Jones. It was learning that success is built long before anyone applauds you. The years he spent as a struggling carpenter had taught him discipline, showing up on time, working with precision, finishing every job with pride. Those habits didn't disappear when he became famous. They became the foundation of his career. Young actors often asked him, "What's the secret?" They expected him to reveal some hidden formula. Instead, his answer was surprisingly simple. Work harder than people expect. Stay curious. Never believe you've already learned everything, because the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. Harrison lived by those words. Even after decades in Hollywood, he continued studying every script. He welcomed feedback. He challenged himself with new roles. He never wanted to become comfortable, because comfort can quietly become the enemy of greatness. Then came something few people expected. Many actors fade away as they grow older. Hollywood often chases younger faces, new stars, new trends, new names. People wondered, would Harrison Ford become another forgotten legend? Would the audience move on? But Harrison refused to let age decide his future. While others talked about retirement, he kept preparing. He stayed physically active. He continued learning. He protected the passion that had carried him through years of rejection. And then, something remarkable happened. The same studios that had once doubted him invited him back. Not because of nostalgia, but because audiences still believed in him. He returned to some of the world's biggest movie franchises, proving that true value doesn't expire with age. In fact, sometimes experience becomes your greatest strength. The man who was once told he wasn't good enough was now inspiring an entirely new generation. And the most powerful lesson of his journey was still waiting to be discovered. As the years passed, Harrison Ford achieved something that very few people ever do. He didn't just become a successful actor. He became a symbol of perseverance. People around the world admired the adventurous hero on the screen, but the real hero was the man behind the character. The man who refused to let rejection write the final chapter of his life. Think about it. If Harrison Ford had quit after his first rejection, there would have been no Han Solo. If he had given up while working as a carpenter, there would have been no Indiana Jones. If he had believed he was too old, millions of people would never have been inspired by his story. His greatest achievement wasn't becoming famous. His greatest achievement was refusing to surrender when success seemed impossible. One interview captured his mindset perfectly. He explained that he never expected life to hand him anything. He simply kept preparing himself so that when an opportunity finally appeared, he would be ready. And that's exactly what happened. The opportunity didn't arrive because he complained. It didn't arrive because he wished for it. It arrived because he spent years becoming the kind of person who could handle it. That's a lesson every dreamer needs to hear. Too many people stop after 10 failures. Some stop after 20. Some stop because their friends laugh. Some stop because they think they're too old. But success has never followed a calendar. Success doesn't ask your age. It asks your commitment. It asks your discipline. It asks whether you're willing to continue when nobody believes in you. Harrison Ford answered those questions with action, not words. Action. He worked while nobody was watching. He improved while nobody was applauding. He believed in himself when almost nobody else did. And eventually, the world believed too. Today, his movies have earned billions of dollars. His characters are known in nearly every country. His name has become part of cinema history. Yet none of those accomplishments erase the years when he struggled to pay his bills. Those difficult years weren't wasted. They built the strength that success later revealed. Because diamonds aren't created in comfort. They are created under pressure. Maybe your dream feels impossible today. Maybe people around you have already given up on you. Maybe you're working a job that has nothing to do with the future you imagine. If that's where you are, remember Harrison Ford. Remember the carpenter carrying his toolbox. Remember the man who was rejected over and over again. Remember the father who refused to stop dreaming even when life gave him every reason to quit. Your current situation is not your final destination. The chapter you're living today is not the ending of your story. As long as you're willing to learn, to improve, to keep showing up, your breakthrough can arrive when you least expect it. Because sometimes the world doesn't recognize your value immediately. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it takes countless failures. But if you keep moving forward, one opportunity, one decision, one unexpected moment can change everything. So don't let today's struggle convince you that tomorrow has already been written. Keep building, keep believing, keep preparing, because your greatest role in life may still be waiting for you. Remember this: it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be. The dream isn't over until you decide to stop chasing it.